They mentioned in the video about directory information, and they used a really good example, the yearbook. Now, we don't have a yearbook here anymore, but that gives a really good idea of what is directory information. Very basically, if we had a student directory that listed everybody's name, everybody's address, phone number, major, that would all be directory information, and it can and does get released to individuals who inquire about it. It's considered public information, and it is not protected under FERPA. Unless. Who can tell me the unless? Sign a waiver. You're close. If it has Social Security numbers on it, then we can't release it. Okay? So all this information can be released unless the student does what? Ask that it not be released. Exactly. And so they would come to the records office and they would say, hey, I don't want my information released to Army recruiters, other schools, or anyone else, period. And so we lock down their records and their information does not get transmitted with anybody else's. So that's what a student would have to do. Otherwise, if we get requests, and we do get a few, for directory information, those go through the Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness, and we release the appropriate records as required. But there is information that is protected even still, even when we get those requests. Non-directory information is protected. So you mentioned Social Security numbers, that's right. Social Security numbers, dates of birth, race, gender, ethnicity, and anything having to do with their grades. Go ahead, Dave.
What about their Odessa College student number?
Their Odessa College student number, let's poll the audience. How many of you feel that their OCID number is directory information, is something we can post or put out there by itself? I've got one hand from Bobby. How many of you think that number is protected? Ooh, I guess I better do a better job educating us. Okay, it is not protected. It is a directory information, and the reason for that is this, and this is something that comes up every once in a while. If that ID number alone gets in the hands of somebody who's not the student, what can they do with it? Nothing. They can't do anything with just that number. What if they have that number and their name? Still can't do anything with it. They need additional information. Think Social Security number, date of birth. Let's put it this way, when admissions sends out a welcome letter now to the new students, they put their own OCID number on that welcome letter so the student can easily reference it. But what does the student typically need in order to log in, register for classes, get a transcript, anything like that? What do they need to have with that OCID number? Password or Social Security number. Exactly. So by itself, that number is not damaging. Okay, so that's a good question. Awesome question. Now, there are some opportunities for releasing information if an emergency exists. If an emergency exists, believe you me, we're going to have the campus police involved. We're going to have some vice presidents involved. If it's not an emergency, don't release it. If you think it might be an emergency, you should be contacting a dean, and they'll get the VPs involved if necessary. Now, there are some other exceptions when we can release information. School members or employees with a legitimate educational interest. So that means each other. Hey, I've got Johnny in my class. Do you have Johnny in your class? Has he been attending? How's his grades been? That's important if you're doing drop rate improvement stuff, right? Because if he's attending your class and not someone else's, well, maybe there's a different kind of issue going on. So that type of information is available to be transmitted and communicated with your other staff members. It can also be communicate with other schools who have a legitimate interest. In my office, that would be if the student has applied for admission to UT and they're asking, well, did the student have this major? Did the student complete these courses? And I can see that the student has indeed registered for classes there and they have admitted to that school. I can release information. You also see that students request transcripts all the time, and that gives us an indication of where the student's intending to apply as well. Financial aid, they have a big need to know, don't they? And when we're talking about financial aid, we have a FERPA form, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, that covers both records, academic records and financial aid records. So when we talk about the FERPA consent form, we'll talk about that here in just a second. But more importantly than anything else I want you to get out of this today is remember that we are all accountable. We must all follow these rules. If you see a paper blown across the lawn and it's not just trash, what should we do? Pick it up, throw it away, put it in a safe place. It might be that student's schedule, and now it's got all sorts of information on it, financial information, it's got their OCID, it's got their address, it may have that they got financial aid on that paper. You know, these students, they lose things sometimes, right? They're carrying all their books that they got from the bookstore, and they're juggling things, and the windows are down on the car, and things blow out. So let's take care to watch out for these type of documents that might be floating around the campus. If something should not be part of the educational record, don't transmit it, don't share it. Keep that confidential for that student and follow the policies. I've listed up on the screen there the different policies that we have on the OCHR website. Go to board policies, you can look those up and see how FERPA applies to the things that we do. I'm giving you the nutshell version, but there's a whole lot more in there if you feel like reading a good book and going to sleep. What's that? Perfect cure for insomnia. You will go to sleep. But it's good information and it's required. So when in doubt, don't let it out. Plain and simple. So what can we do if you have a student that calls you and says, excuse me, let's say a parent calls and says, my son is in your class and I want to know how they're doing on the grades. They just had a test last week. How'd they do? Hold on.
If you start off with a hard no, I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything, you're immediately going to have a confrontation with that parent. Tell them, okay, can I get your number? I'm going to have to call you back. Let me make a quick call and verify that I can do this, and I'll get right back to you. You call them, they give you some password that they should know if it's up to date is on there. You call back, and they're like, okay, do you have a password for me? If 99% it's a legit request, and they give it, and then you have a conversation. If you go that way, you'll avoid angering them because they don't understand it from their side.
I love his answer. It's very complete. Thank you. When you have these conversations, and they're going to happen, they happen every single year. But I pay the bills, but he's under 18, and they want to know. And just last year, they might have been in grade school and had full access to everything. We have some options. One option, very good. Thank you. Call the records office. Get the student's information, the parent's information. Say, let me check and see if you've got access. I will call you right back. Call the records office. Just call our main number. I'll have it up here on the screen in a minute. And call us. See if Johnny has a FERPA form on file. It's called a grant access form. And what it does is it says, I, the student, allow my parent, my boyfriend, my friend, some stranger, to have access to my records. They sign it, they date it, they can make it a one-time thing, they can make it expire in 1 year, and they can revoke it the very next day if they want to. But we'll have all those forms in the records office. If the student has a password on there, we will tell you what the password is and who is authorized to get those records. And we'll say, if you're talking to Angela, and Angela tells you the password, don't ask them, is Hot Boxer the password? Well, yes it is. You're wrong. I'm just kidding. If you find out what the password is from us and you say, okay, Angela, I see that you've got a FERPA form with your son. What is the password? If they can't tell you, then have Johnny call you. Okay, so that's one option. Give me 1 second, David, and I'll come back to your question. The other option is, get Johnny on the phone with Mom. Johnny, what class are you in with me? You have to verify who it is, especially by phone, right? You can do this in your office just as easily. Johnny, were you in class last Friday? No, that's right, you did miss. Now your mom knows too. Okay, Johnny, can I talk to you and your mom together on the phone right now? Get that verbal permission. Okay, we're going to talk about your grade. Your mom wants to know the grade. Anytime you want to, say, no, don't talk anymore, then we have to end this conversation. But right now you're saying, yes, we're going to talk with Mom. And you're in the conversation, so you know exactly what we're talking about. That is probably one of the easiest ways to do it, because you know what? Mom wants to know, and Johnny's still living under her roof. And chances are very good that she's going to go, you get over here, get on the extension, or three-way the phone call, whatever, and you can have that conversation, okay? So that's one of the easier ways to do it too. David, what's your question?
As I'm recruiting incoming freshmen during the spring and summer, when is the exact moment that FERPA kicks in? When I begin speaking to them, or when they're accepted of this college?
That's a really great question. I love it. When does a student become a student instead of an applicant? The minute that they start taking classes. Day one. Now you can talk about the class, you can talk about your expectations, you can talk about all that information up until the point that your class begins. When your class begins, then you can talk in generalities. My class expectations are this. You would not then be able to say, but Johnny hasn't been fulfilling those expectations unless you had FERPA protection. Does that make sense? Awesome. Dr. Crawford.
What about accidental contact with records, like you were talking about the paper flowing across the campus? The more, if I were grading a student's exam and a student just barges in without knocking and stuff and they saw a score from another student, is that me or is that on that student?
Yes.
Yeah.
The question is, what about accidental, incidental contact with student records? Okay, that does happen. Guess what? It happens to me all the time. If you've ever walked in my office, and many of you have, you've seen I've got stacks and piles and lots of things going on at one time. But what's the first thing you normally see me do? Turn it over, put a FERPA form on top of it. I have in my office, we have lots of orange pieces of paper. This information protected by FERPA, and we just slap that on top of the stack. Okay? So it happens. Make your best effort right at that moment to turn over the paper, cover it up so that they can't see any information, and press on. It's going to happen. You guys are busy, the students are busy, and they may just walk in on you. If you have questions about academic FERPA information, call the records office. If it's student-related, like the behavioral intervention team we were talking about earlier, call your Sonia Flunder in the student life office because she is more experienced in that realm and I'm more experienced in the academic record portion. Some more information about enforcement. So what happens if we don't do our best? That. It's expensive. And not only is it liable to the school, it's liable to the person. So I don't know about y'all, but I can't afford a couple of those a month. That would be very detrimental to my paycheck. So let's just keep in mind that when in doubt, don't let it out. If an incident happens and you're like, ooh, I think I crossed the line, let me know. And let's talk about the situation. If you're in the middle of a situation and you're like, I might have just come to that line and I don't want to cross it, call the records office. If I'm not there, they'll take your number. I will get back to you as quickly as I certainly can because we want to keep the students safe and yet let you do your job. Because this isn't about restricting your ability to teach effectively. This is just about protecting the students' confidentiality. Do you have a question?
Yeah, the safety and sanitation, the whole term, at the very end, they
Let's ask a dean.
By the institutions. So since we keep a lot of things in Blackboard, sounds like an educational record to me.
Is it being kept as a grade?
No, never.
It's an exercise. We're not maintaining the grade at all.
No, their whole thing on the end of that is they do a service safe exam, and they get a certificate.
You've gotten a little bit of a gray area there, so I would be cautious. What Dr. Yeager said is correct. If it's kept in Blackboard, if it's scored and maintained for any part of that student's academic record, that's where it crosses that line into it's an academic record, must be protected. If it's practice, you can have a whole bunch of them. It's not really going to hurt anybody, but you might want to think about letting a student opt out if they are uncomfortable sharing their information with other students. Just a personal thought there. So just keep in mind, if it becomes part of their academic record, yes. If it's just a practice, let's do a worksheet. Worksheets are not normally kept, graded, that type of thing. If you destroy educational records, this is the bad news. It's even more expensive. And so you all have probably seen how many file drawers we have in the records office of student academic records going back to 1946. We are very cautiously converting those into digital format. If I destroy a student's record, even if it was accidental, and we don't have it somewhere, bad news for me. So just think about that when you continue to do your jobs. Not trying to scare you here, but it is kind of